So good morning, everyone. My name is George Bell. Welcome to 1 Million Cups. It's my pleasure to be here with you all. Can't wait to get started with another one. So before we get started today and have our special guest speak, I'll tell you just a little bit about what 1 Million Cups is, and then we'll go from there and get into our presentation. Problems? Okay. So 1 Million Cups was created by the Kauffman Foundation with the mission to support entrepreneurs by providing education, engagement, and connections. What started off as a small program in Kansas City back in 2012 has now grown to over 163 communities, including here in Chico, California. At its core, 1 Million Cups is a free program designed to empower and connect local entrepreneurs, where individuals come together to share ideas, seek feedback, and learn from one another. So 1 Million Cups is all about lowering your access, the barrier of access to education resources for all entrepreneurs. So pretty much today, we'll have our 6-minute presentation. Then we'll go into about a 20-minute, 15-minute Q&A session. We'll have a wrap-up and go from there. Feel free to check us out at 1millioncups.com/Chico. There you could apply yourself if you want to be one of our next presenters, or you could just find our community, stay in the loop, see what we got going on. Feel free to anytime join us for coffee. So we'll get right into it. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our special presenter today, Tzvi of Purpurātus.
All right.
So I'm gonna go ahead and drop my screen, Tzvi. I'll let you share your screen and go from there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Of course. CD access. Okay, you should be good. Let me know.
Okay, let's give it a shot. Okay, has this come up? Okay.
Yep, we got you.
Awesome. Get my stretch in before I start.
No problem.
Okay. Hello. Thanks for the introduction. My name is Tzvi Weber. My co-founders are Mikel Lamon and Andrew Hideo Matayoshi, who unfortunately couldn't make it today. But today, regardless, I have the pleasure of speaking to you about our startup, Purpurātus, which we've made to incentivize the restoration of the Californian kelp forests. 16 years ago, the western coast of the United States was covered in vibrant and healthy kelp forests. Home to over 700 marine species, these ecosystems protected our coastlines from storm surges while sequestering 20 times more CO2 than a land forest of equal size. Annually, they delivered over $46 billion in overall ecological benefits to California. Since 2008, over 96% of these lush biomes have been destroyed, devoured by a surging wave of sea urchins overpopulated by more than 1,000 times their sustainable population. Events exacerbated by warming oceans and human involvement have rendered the main predators of sea urchins locally extinct, giving them free rein to consume kelp and reproduce. To make things worse, these urchins aren't going anywhere. After consuming all nearby kelp, they enter a hibernation state, and in it, the first thing they discard is the reproductive organs, uni, losing all value as a food source for human and non-human predators alike. Research suggests the urchins can live for decades in this state, only awakening when kelp tries to grow back so that they can feast again, preventing any new growth. These stationary urchins create huge swaths of lifeless seabed called urchin barrens. The balance of nature has been profoundly upset, and this plague of urchins is preventing its restoration. In January of 2022, as students at UC Davis, my co-founders and I recognized that this crisis could not be resolved without human intervention. We saw an opportunity to turn this environmental disaster into a chance for meaningful impact, ensuring that future generations could benefit from these essential biomes. We founded Purpurātus with the goal of making kelp forest regeneration profitable by harnessing the hidden value of the sea urchin. We've developed a set of processes that'll allow us to extract the natural purple pigment from within the urchin's spines while converting the shell into food-grade calcium. These two products will serve as the basis for our company, and each has a wealth of opportunity behind them. Over the past 2 years of R&D, we've developed our processes rigorously and have proven their reliability at a benchtop scale. Our research has led to unique processes being zero waste, low cost, and inherently scalable. To accomplish our goals, we've had to build a strong foundation. Andrew's expertise in marine biology, Mikkel's experience in R&D and laboratory work, and my background in sustainable product design have been pivotal in the discovery and development of our solution. Throughout our journey, we've received guidance from a huge wealth of successful clean tech entrepreneurs, scientists, financiers, venture capitalists, and more, who we're now proud to call our advisory board. That guidance and our work since January of 2022 has led us to some very significant traction, and I have it right here. We've participated in 8 accelerator programs, secured 6 wins in 8 pitching competitions, and have solidified partnerships with both suppliers and buyers, and are currently finalizing our incorporation as a C Corp while we prepare for the launch of our pilot production facility. Before we get too ahead of ourselves, I'd love to speak about how our business will work. And so we'll go to our business model, which I find to be quite straightforward. We source our materials wholesale or through paid diving efforts, process everything in-house, and sell our products to distributors or directly to the manufacturers who will use them. Our target markets for our pigment and calcium are textiles and vitamin supplements, respectively. Initially, our revenue will come from direct sales, but we've been told by potential B2B customers that we can expect to eventually take a cut of end user sales as well. Our inputs, aside from the urchins, are all globally available non-toxic chemicals or compounds that can be purchased in bulk, which makes urchin sourcing our main concern in the supplier end of things. Luckily, our close relationships with the Ocean Conservancy and California Sea Urchin Commission make that a non-problem. Their current kelp restoration activities naturally create thousands of pounds of sea urchin waste, which we can use as feedstock. And when we manage to use all of it, their diving teams have already agreed to source urchins for us on demand. Our outputs are quite flexible, as there are thousands of businesses around the world that need to source calcium or need to make things purple. But to maximize our impact, we've narrowed down our view into some beachhead markets that we know we can address before we begin to sell our products at a global stage. Here are the TAM SAM for those markets. Now, our estimates on the size of the market we plan to approach aren't of any real value without customer demand, in my opinion. So, to find the demand for that pigment and for our calcium, we've surveyed dye houses and clothing brands across the entire length of the Californian coast, as well as vitamin conglomerates. Through these customer interviews, we found that when we can produce reliably at scale, most, if not all, would be eager to add us to their offerings. We've also managed to secure an LOI with LA fashion brand Thai Cowboy, who will help us with the R&D and standardized testing of our textile dye. On the calcium side of things, within 6 or so exploratory phone calls, we managed to reach Max Willis, Chief of Innovation and Research at Better Being Co., one of the US's largest wellness conglomerates. With the help of their team, we'll be launching a pilot supplement under one of their brands as soon as our calcium passes their preliminary testing. With partners in place on both sides of the question, or of the equation, all that's left is the purpurātus of it all. Our next big step is setting up our proof of concept production facility in Fort Bragg, California. We found our location and are negotiating price, but our tight fiscal leash is starting to make itself known. While we can use the funding we've received from pitching competitions and accelerators to purchase most of the materials and equipment we need for our pilot, there's no way we can cover the labor needed to get to profitability with only the $10,000 that we have. We're considering a couple of different avenues for funding, but currently it seems like dilutive funding may be our best bet. I'm hoping that after your questions and comments today, I'll have a clearer picture of our options and the advantages or disadvantages they bring. And that's my presentation for today. And thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to your
Cool.
Good
comments.
job.
Cool.
Hey, what happened to the reference to Scarface?
The Scarface reference is very good.
I
And
know.
will probably come up in my GFX presentation,
Okay,
but it only really works when I'm talking about the pigment and then
right.
the calcium as like two separate things.
I know. Yeah, since you'll be coming up for Grow Tech Fest, I would suggest you put it in there as well.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good one. I mean, I just like died right when I saw it. It was so funny.
Yeah, I think
All
that's
right.
pretty good.
All right,
Good job.
all right,
George.
V, I'm gonna ask you just to see if you could. Okay, cool. So we got your information there. Cool. I'm gonna ask you just to drop your screen, and then we could kind of get into a little bit of a Q&A session.
Awesome.
Cool.
All right. Well, good morning again. Hey,
Good morning.
so I take it because you're so well prepared, and you've been working on this for some time now. The biggest. I'm going to put my VC hat on for a minute because I used to be in the VC world. Okay, the biggest costs are normally transportation, travel, and salaries, right? So depending on if it's a product or a service, et cetera, right? So my question to you has less to do with salaries and travel and more to do with transportation. Okay. So transportation and storage, how are you, what are do you figure those into the cost of goods? And what are some of the challenges there?
Awesome. Fantastic question. Thank you very much. So the reason that we're going to be setting up in Fort Bragg is because that is the port of call for the California Sea Urchin Commission's diving teams.
Okay.
So by setting up there, our pilot facility will basically be a minute walk from the actual dock itself, where the urchins are landed. Currently, they're stored in 5 by 5 by 5 just hollow white cubes. And there are thousands of those cubes all over the port, just full of rotting sea urchins. Truly thousands and thousands of pounds of them.
Wow.
And the actual transport of them will be using a K truck, which is a Japanese imported truck.
Yep.
They're
Mhm.
like $3,000 or something. And we just need a small truck to move them from where they are on the dock to slightly further down the dock, basically. In that, so we've managed to figure out a way that we can keep our actual transport costs for those materials dirt cheap.
Right.
For us, the cost of that comes in sourcing, but we have factored that into our cost of goods, but it doesn't really raise it, not by any significant margin.
Okay.
And then sorry, I'm trying to think of how to frame the rest of that, my answer to that question. It's a good question, not one I get often. So additionally, so that's kind of the transport side of things.
Right.
Actual shipping of goods will be handled through, I believe, a third party. We're planning on using, I believe, either I think FedEx gave us our best offer recently. It was FedEx or UPS or USPS were kind of the options that seemed viable since we're planning on sticking to California for the initial sales of our products, to lower, overall costs and increase interest since we're solving a Californian problem. So we've seen a lot more traction with Californian companies.
Right.
So on the output side of things, it'll be through third party, and then for salaries and stuff, those are our actual main concerns, I'd say, for finance.
Okay. I'm going to add on to that and then I won't hog all the questions.
Sorry.
I want to add on to that by asking specifically around storage. So if you said that they have literally these bins, right, just sitting around and rotting sea urchins, what is the criteria or the optimal, what is the optimal storage for those? If they're rotting, that's fine, you can still use them. That's what I meant from my storage side question. Like, are you going to have
Got it.
refrigeration units? Are you going to need Because those are other CapEx costs, and I was just trying to figure that out.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
So we can use an urchin in any state.
Wow.
The processes that we've developed, we've been very careful to make sure that we can essentially we are recovering waste material.
Right.
We are in a large way a circular economy effort.
Uh-huh.
We are able to take a urchin shell or urchin test is the technical word for it,
Okay.
in any state and convert it into food grade calcium.
Oh,
The spines that we get the pigment from,
right.
the fresher, the better.
Yeah.
But we've had success with even quite sun bleached. They come out white as bone. And once they've been sitting in the sun for months. And
Right.
even then we've managed to get a little bit of pigment out of them.
Right.
Um, Really the bare minimum is that we just put a tarp over some of those bins
Right.
so that the sun bleaching doesn't affect the pigment so much.
Right.
But in the far-flung future, it would be nice for us to have refrigeration units.
Right.
We will have some small refrigeration for the pigment itself
Right.
once we've extracted it, just to keep it in its optimal form. It can survive through heat up to 110 degrees, and just kind of be fine. But it does shorten the lifespan of the pigment before it's used. Once it's actually used, it remains pretty much the same no matter what.
Hmm. Okay. Thank you for answering that.
Happy to
Any other
answer.
questions or
Of
do I
course.
just-
So I'm not too familiar with the business, and you might have mentioned it as well, but you said so you're going to get physical divers to obtain the sea urchins and bring them to you, essentially. What is on average, does that cost? And on average, how much can they usually bring you a day or a work week or however you want to summarize that?
Awesome question. The I'll be using diving estimates given to me from the divers.
Okay.
So the cost of urchins is determined by pound that they bring ashore. Um, and that can range from uh depending on kind of the size of the individual urchins, which is directly correlated to their value. Um, it can range from $1.50 per pound to $3.50 per pound. Um, Before this whole urchin crisis thing, the prices were a little bit higher. But also there weren't, urchins as many as, grains of sand on the floor, right? They are truly everywhere. There are billions and billions of urchins in the water off our coastline. Um, the actual harvesting process is basically they put a lacrosse net on one of their hands, hold a bag in the other, and just scoop them off the ground into the bag in their offhand. Um, we can expect a diver to gather somewhere between 100 to 200 pounds of urchins in a day of diving. That a day of diving usually implies 4 hours on, 4 hours off, um, while they're out on their boat, and usually they go in diving teams of 5 or more. So in a day we can expect 1 to 200 pounds per diver, and the California Sea Urchin Commission has, I believe, 20 divers in their roster.
Okay, and so it's not free raw material.
No.
Darn.
Yeah, I wish. Um, but our profit margins are still pretty fantastic. We are taking it is, while not free, still a waste material.
Sure.
But we kind of see it as a positive because a lot of these divers and fisher folk have had their livelihoods destroyed by
Oh, heck
this
yeah.
crisis. So being able to provide them with consistent work again is in our books a huge win. Um, we're happy to take a small hit to our profit margins if it means we can keep more people fed.
Any other questions before I start asking questions?
Heather just asked one in the chat.
Yeah.
Heather asked, is there any competition in this arena, and are the urchins being used for anything else? Thank you for the question, Heather. There is, so competition is a weird way for me to put it, but there are other people trying to create solutions. There are several groups trying to ranch the urchins. So they take the urchins out of the water, ranch them back to health to restore their uni, and then sell them as food for the delicacy. They when actually getting the uni out of the urchins, basically smash it with a hammer, split it in half, and take the uni out of it. They then throw out the shell and the spines, and it goes to a landfill. We can reroute that waste stream, and turn that into further profit. So they're not really our competition while we're both trying to get urchins pulled out of the water. We're more of two sides of the same coin, I like to think, or two parts of a fully sustainable effort. That's the main thing that the urchins are being used for. Otherwise, historically, there's no use case for the urchin shells. In thousands of years ago, there are records of indigenous uses where they would basically boil a bunch of urchins with some cloth or whatever they wanted to dye. But since then, there's been no record of people using urchins for almost anything beyond food.
Interesting.
You spoke about sustainability. How are you gonna sustain your business if the whole point is to kind of get rid of those urchins? And like recover the reefs? That was like the initial. What are you gonna do when you get to that point and you can no longer grab more urchins, or they're stealing them, the farmers are stealing them from you, or are they regenerative like that?
Awesome question. The kind of like you said, our kind of end goal is that the kelp forests are back to normal. We've eliminated 99.9% of the urchin population, so that's back to normal. But to get there, we have to go through about 10 billion urchins. So it's not really an immediate thing. That I hope we can get through that in my lifetime. I believe we can. Really depends on how quickly we scale. But assuming that, things go incredibly well, let's say that we finish in half a decade. Let's say we finish in 5 years, which would be an awesome timeline. Then, like I said, in my response to Heather's question, we can redirect food waste. So the uni industry is a global kind of thing. Almost all coastal communities harvest urchins for their uni. We can give fisheries a little trash can to put next to their trash can and their recycling bin. That's their urchin recycling bin. They throw all of their urchin shell and spine in there. We pick it up at some point in the week, bring it back to our facility, and use that, break it down, and make our products. Beyond California as well, this is a truly global issue. I call it kind of an epidemic of sea urchins. Tasmania is kind of my favorite case, or my favorite example case of this. Previously, Tasmania was surrounded by one of the most beautiful oceanic biomes the world has seen. It was called the Great Tasmanian Kelp Forests. They don't exist anymore entirely. They have been 100% eaten, devoured by these urchins, leaving behind huge swaths of urchin barrens. And so we can set up a facility there, get rid of all of those urchins. There are urchin barrens all throughout the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. There are urchins surrounding Australia. There are urchins off the western coast of Europe and the eastern coast of Asia. Even Japan, which has kind of mitigated their urchin population by just the sheer volume of uni that they harvest, is still seeing a kind of overflow of urchins. So around the world, there is a need for a kind of process or product that will allow us to indiscriminately take urchins from the water and without really regard for whether or not they're large enough or producing uni, we are able to create something out of them. So in the eventuality that maybe we clear the whole world of urchin barrens, we then would just scale down and continue to make products in using those redirected food waste streams. But in my opinion, that's kind of a good thing.
So that begs the next question, which is how fast do these little puppies reproduce?
Kind of scarily quick. They really they really break it down into the bare necessities. They really have two functions, and it is eat and reproduce, and that's all they do. And they do it quite quickly. So this population, if you think of it as they started with their original population, in around 2007, they were at their sustainable population. In about 17 years, they've multiplied by 1,000 times that, which is pretty prolific. And that's just off the coast of California, let alone, worldwide.
Yeah.
It would be challenging for humans, I think, in 17 years to produce 1,000 times our population.
No.
So I think we
Go
got
ahead,
a
George.
question. Nestor, did you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I had a question. I'm assuming this is a business to business model. Who are your primary consumers and what keeps them from sourcing your materials from somewhere else that are not urchins?
Awesome, Nestor. Thank you for the question. So our beachhead markets and first kind of target customers are, well, first of all, you're correct. We're planning on being B2B for our initial phases of production. But our kind of first customers are going to be fashion brands and textile people who use purple textile dyes, as well as kind of health conglomerates, people who make dietary supplements. Our calcium kind of naturally after our processes comes in the form of calcium citrate, which is the most bioavailable form of calcium, making it the kind of ideal form for calcium supplements. The pigment, obviously, we can combine with a textile dye base to create a textile dye. Our products, I will say, blanket statement, are more expensive than synthetic alternatives. However, we are seeing in pretty much every industry across the world a super strong push from end users to get have a great flight, Heather. To kind of source sustainably. Products that have clear ESG kind of effects and have clear positive effects on the environment, or not even positive, right? But sustainable effects. They don't have obvious detrimental effects to the environment, are seeing as much as 9 to 12 times the product growth of products that don't have those sustainability kind of labeling and clear kind of messaging. We go a step beyond sustainable. We are not just a sustainable practice, we are a restorative one. And so we're able to offer ESG incentives and marketing that no one else can. Especially in the case of purple pigment and calcium. Purple pigment is currently primarily sourced through synthetic purple made in India, which is destroying their waterways if it hasn't, already destroyed their waterways. Most rivers in India are now no longer potable. They are filled with the detergent and synthetic products that these kind of synthetic purple and synthetic cyan are the two worst kind of offenders of this, but basically they can't use their water anymore. It's not ideal, right? And then for calcium, it's currently primarily sourced through diatomaceous earth mining, which is also a expendable resource and is primarily done through what is honestly slave labor overseas. People are starved and forced to work just egregiously, which isn't ideal, and we're trying to pivot away from using that. There are some sustainable alternatives for calcium starting to pop up. One of them being Aquaman, who I highly recommend. Very much think everybody should check out. They are growing macroalgae off the coast of Europe, and this macroalgae, the seaweed, basically sequesters calcium from the water, creates a shell of calcium around itself, and then it sinks to the bottom of the ocean. They scoop it up, take all the nice vitamins off of it, and sell those. However, again, they are sustainable, they are not restorative. So that's how we set ourselves apart.
Yeah. I like that.
All right, I'm just gonna update sea urchins reproduce once a year, but they, depending on their species, either purple or red, if you're a purple sea urchin, you can produce up to 20 million eggs a year.
So
Right, so that's how you quickly reproduce and take over the world. Okay, got it.
Got a lot of work ahead of you, huh?
And
I
then,
was like, you'll be sustainable.
right, and then red sea urchin, can produce between 100,000 and 2 million eggs a year. So they're not as much as the purple, evidently, according to Google. That does not mean I know
Yeah.
what I'm talking about. I'm repeating what I'm reading, right?
Right.
So that, because I was thinking to myself, would they have to reproduce every week to like take over in 1,000 X within, how many years? I was going to give you a hug. Oh, hi, sorry, my daughter just stopped by to give me a hug.
Nice.
Okay, that was I love you.
Beautiful.
All right. Anyway, yeah.
An awesome tidbit, and it also brings up, sorry, I don't mean to cut you
No,
off.
go.
We can actually source any urchin and use it for our processes. So
I was
all
gonna,
urchins universally have 96% of their weight or 97% of their weight as the calcium component that we extract. And then additionally, we've tested with red, purple, and black urchin. But we can get the same pigment basically out of all of them. And by adjusting the alkalinity and acidity of the solution we suspended in, we can actually get a range of colors, even from the purple urchins, ranging from a very nice dark blue to a light pink. So we get purple and the surrounding range as well.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I've got another question unless somebody interrupts me.
Go ahead,
Okay.
go for it.
Okay, did you tell the group what Purpurātus means?
I have not yet. So
Okay.
Purpurātus is Latin for robed in purple.
Okay.
Very nice.
Purpurātus is additionally the sea urchins that we source. Their scientific name is Strontilocentriotus purpuratus.
Okay.
So it's the sea star robed in purple.
Very nice.
Cool. So I'm curious, So how did you meet your team? How did you guys come up with this idea? Kind of like what's the yeah, like what's the story behind how you came up with this?
Awesome. So Mikkel, I've known since 2009.
Okay.
We were childhood friends. We were in the same youth
Wow.
group and have just been in very close contact since then. I actually got semi-adopted into his family at a certain point, but we are we are very close, and we both went to UC Davis. Uh, and at UC Davis, we took a course called biodesign, which is a part of a larger competition across universities where you try to find a problem that you can solve through biodesign, which is kind of a range of design that includes biomimicry and ecologically friendly solutions. In that class, we met Andrew, who's our third founder, and Mikkel and I have always been pretty passionate about specifically fauna and the effects of fauna on the world and our effects on native life. And Mikkel and Andrew got to talking, and I hadn't even known about it at that point, but they started to talk about the kelp forests and kind of the lack of them. The huge amount of carbon sequestration that the world is losing rapidly without the kelp forests. And pretty quickly we came to a conclusion that like nobody's done anything about this. Someone should do something about this. Might as well be us. And over the next year or so, we kind of experimented with what we could do with the sea urchins, kind of their basic form, what we could break them down into. And originally we started with the pigment and a thermoplastic that we were making by combining the calcium with an algae PLA. But the R&D costs of that are astronomical. To make a consistent 3D printing filament or thermoplastic for molding is challenging. And so we realized that we could just sell the calcium as is, as a vitamin supplement, and it's kind of been straightforward since then.
Dope, dope. Ooh. Yeah, I think you guys got the team. Perfect team.
No, this is great. Any additional questions?
I think any other questions from y'all? I think I'm good.
I take that as a good sign.
Cool. Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. Cool. All right. Well, I guess I'll go ahead and wrap up from here. Fantastic job. It was great to hear about your business. Let's see, I'll go ahead and share that. Okay, cool. All right, cool, y'all. Thank you for joining us today. I'll go ahead and this right here. Bit of a wrap up. Big thank you for myself as your host and organizer and our chapter lead, Eva Shepard. I just want to shout out some of our community sponsors. We got GrowTech, SBDC California, Habo, Tri-Counties Bank, Startup Grind, as well as the Global Entrepreneur Network. Some of the things in our Chico Start pipeline that you can look out for. We have a Grow with Google next week. Get your local businesses on Google search, which is October 2nd, 11 to 12. Oh, I got a little mistake there, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Oh, well, that's not a mistake. Yeah,
that's correct.
It's true. And then 1 million cups again next week. We have NCT Group E. Hopefully, you guys pop out and show
Show some love.
yeah, show some love and come out and see us. That'll be 9 a.m. next week, October 2nd, next Wednesday. And then of course we've been promoting it as much as possible. We got Grow Tech Fest coming up at the Sierra Nevada Big Room on Wednesday, November 6th. Tzvi, I hear that you'll be there. Looking forward to seeing you on a bigger stage. And yeah, from there, I'll go ahead and end us out. Oh, and feel free to find all that information at chicostart.com/events. before we get out of here, you could check out our newsletter at Chico Start or at chicostart.com. Sorry. And then let you go. My favorite part of 1 Million Cups Wednesdays is my quote. It's not about ideas, it's about making ideas happen. Co-founder of Behance
Snaps
Inc.
and claps.
So
Yeah.
great having you, Zvi. Thank you so much for being here. Look forward to seeing you at Girl Tech Fest. And yeah, see you guys next time.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for having
Excellent
me.
job. Excellent job.
Thank you very much. And I'll see you guys then.
All right, see you.